Okay, as promised, I'm putting out a policy statement on YouTube. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 items. I'm going to try to work through them briefly just to give an overview of how I feel about these things. Since I'm running for the South Carolina District 5 seat, currently held by Tim Scott, who's not doing the job, I'm going to start out with the Constitution. The Constitution is the law of the land. It was ratified by each and every state in the Union, all of them. You cannot become a state without ratifying the Constitution. The Constitution is plain and simple. It was written by everyday men who stepped up and fought for liberty. It was not written by lawyers so that lawyers could understand it. It was written so that the plain people could understand it and enforce it. The Constitution was written to restrain the federal government that they were about to make, not to restrain the states. The states, according to the Constitution, maintain their independence and sovereignty. The states are supposed to be, number one, our first point of contact. The federal government was supposed to handle our relations with other nations. Now, according to the agreement in the Constitution, which the Constitution is basically a contract, it's not just a set of laws, it's a contract. According to the Constitution, any state that violates the Constitution is in rebellion against the Constitution. And you may also note, those of you that have been in the military, you do not swear an oath to the United States government. None of us do. We swear an oath to the United States Constitution to support and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, the reason for that is because our first allegiance is to the Constitution. We cannot violate it. We cannot refuse to enforce it. We cannot refuse to honor it. We cannot refuse to protect it. We cannot refuse to obey it and defend it. We can refuse to obey the orders of the federal government if they violate the Constitution. Every soldier, every sailor, every airman, every Marine, every Coast Guard member, every member of the Space Force will tell you, you are informed that you do not have to obey an illegal order. You do have to obey the Constitution. Period. That's the way it is. Any state that is in rebellion against the Constitution is thereby in rebellion against the United States government. The government was formed to obey the Constitution and to serve it. Every member swears the same oath, from the president down to the private, from the Speaker of the House right down to the lowliest elected member. Every senator, from the majority leader on down, swear the same oath. Now, that's my opinion about the Constitution. Any state or any person, any member of government that does not obey the Constitution has violated their oath and has forfeited their office. That's the law. Now, as regards the laws of the federal government, the Constitution, the federal government, states, counties, cities, all municipalities, all regulations, all laws, all ordinances, all of them fall under the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It's the top. Other than God's law, there is no greater law for us in this country. Okay? Now, if you live in France, I don't know what to tell you. France. Anyway, any law up under the Constitution has to be in accordance with the Constitution, or it is said to be unconstitutional. That's one of the jobs of the courts, is to look at these laws if an issue comes up and say, yes, that law is constitutional. You have to obey it. No, that law is not constitutional. It is null and void, and you do not have to obey it. Give you an example on a state level. South Carolina has concealed carry permits. I don't agree with that, but we do. I believe in Constitution carry. I believe the Second Amendment is in the Constitution should be the law. It is the law, but many states are not obeying it. But anyway, in South Carolina, we have concealed carry. South Carolina also has total preemption of handgun laws. That means that no city and no county and no police organization, no municipality or department thereof can create a law or ordinance or regulation that changes or affects the concealed carry laws. Certain places you can't conceal carry, like on government property, the post office, city hall, such as that. Okay? That's the law. If the city of Gaffney, where I live, makes an ordinance for a taxi driver like me, who has a concealed carry permit, cannot carry in their taxi while at work doing taxi business, that law is illegal. I don't have to obey it. We've had that happen in Gaffney. A police officer told me that the city of Gaffney had an ordinance that said I could not carry my weapon in the taxi while taxiing. I told him on the spot, well, I'm sorry, state of South Carolina has total preemption of handgun laws. That law is illegal, and I'm not going to obey it. You know what happened? He backed down. That's what happens when you know your rights, when you know the law. Everybody should have a basic understanding of the law. Local, city, county, state, federal, and constitutional especially. Everybody needs a copy of the Constitution in their pocket. All of us. Now, let's move on to the second point. Taxes. Federal income taxes are unconstitutional. That's a fact. The federal government was never intended to be funded by your income taxes. Ain't supposed to happen. States can have income taxes. Counties and cities can have income taxes. I don't like it, but they can. But the federal government is not supposed to tax your income. They are supposed to get their money from tariffs and other sources. Now, that brings me to the IRS and the federal bank, the Federal Reserve Bank. Also unconstitutional. Not authorized in the Constitution. Needs to be done away with. We don't need any other form of money like a Federal Reserve note where they can just print money out of thin air. We don't need that. That means that when Nixon took us off the gold standard, which was also illegal, when Nixon took us off the gold and silver standard, that made our money based for its value on the faith and good credit of the American government. Do you know what that means? That means that every dollar that they print is worth what we think it's worth. That's not a good thing. Now, I smoked cigarettes for a very long time. When I first started smoking, a pack of Marlboros, which Cigarettes were cigarettes. There were Marlboro, Winston, such as that. They were not 100s. They didn't have lights. They didn't have all that crap. They were 50 cents a pack. $4 tax on the dollar for the state. That meant each pack of Marlboros was 52 cents. Do you think Marlboros are worth $7 a pack now because the quality has went up? No. The value of the monies went down because you have to have some kind of value for every dollar you print. Under the gold standard and the silver standard, the federal government had to have in their possession $1 in gold or silver for every dollar they printed. That was the law. Okay? If you print $2 for that $1 in value, each dollar is worth 50 cents. If you print 100 $1 bills for every dollar of value you have, each dollar is worth a penny. That's inflation. Inflation can get out of control when the government prints too much money and floods the market with it. That's called hyperinflation. Happened during the Civil War when the equivalent of a loaf of bread would cost $400 or $500. That's what happens. That's why they were so after the Confederate gold. Because if they didn't get that gold back, the money was worthless. As long as the Confederate government had that gold in their possession, the money had value. They never got it back, and the economy collapsed. Happened in Germany during World War II, when the economy collapsed. The mark went to zero value. It could cost 5,000 marks, their equivalent of $1, for a loaf of bread. Well, if you're making the same $5, $10, $15 an hour, it's going to take you a while to get a loaf of bread. That's what's going on. That's why running us into debt the way they are will crash the economy. It is a mathematical certainty. Here's the problem. We would need to pay the money back to ourselves because we printed more than we got. We don't have the value in the GDP, which substitutes for the faith and good credit of the government. If you borrow so much money that the interest payments alone are more than you're taking in, you have a problem. That's why the economy crashes. That's where we are. The interest payments on the national debt are more than the GDP, the gross national product, which is how much the government brings in as a nation. It's how much the nation brings in. It's not how much the government gets in taxes. It's how much the nation produces. We cannot pay it off. It's not going to happen. Okay? If you want to know the cure for that problem, ask me and I'll tell you. But I'm not going into it right this minute because I've got 10 other points and it's a long drawn out thing and it'll be painful to fix. All right, abortion. Abortion is murder. Very simple. When they first started coming up with the idea of abortion on demand, the left's argument was, well, number one, we don't know when it's alive. Number two, we don't know when it's human. So if it might not be alive and it might not be human, it might just be a growth. You can kill it. Logical from their point of view. There's only one problem with that. It is never intended to be a growth. You have an independent sperm cell and an independent egg cell. The two come together, and that's what makes a fetus. That fetus, from the moment of conception, is alive. Why? Because the sperm cell and the egg cell are alive. If you take a dead sperm cell, or a non-living sperm cell, and a dead egg cell, or a non-living egg cell, and you put them together inside a woman, you know what you get? You get soup. Soup. It'll never be alive. The second law of thermodynamics states that without outside intervention, matter does not, in and of itself, organize. Got to have an outside source of stimulus. Energy, something. With no outside, you can't will that fetus alive. It either starts out alive or it'll never be alive. Therefore, it's alive. Funny how they think that a microbe on Mars would be considered life, but a human infant is not. And now they have abortion up to and including the day of delivery. That's murder. That's genocide. Now, when is it human? Okay, you have a human egg cell and a human sperm cell, and you put them together, and you get a human. Makes sense. You take an ostrich egg cell and a buffalo sperm cell, and you put them together. What do you get? You get soup. It's not a human. It'll never be a human. Has never been a human. They won't even work together at all. Nothing happens. It's got to be a human egg cell and a human sperm cell. It has to be, and they both have to be alive. Or you got nothing. You got soup. Now, I'm going to skip on down here to Roe v. Wade, okay? Because it's related to the abortion issue. Roe v. Wade was the decision by the Supreme Court that made abortion legal in the United States. Here's the problem. The Constitution, damn, that pesky Constitution. The Constitution says that the federal government only has such authority as is relegated to it by this Constitution. Okay? You can't reach outside your authority. The Constitution says we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Therefore, since abortion is not mentioned, either as an act or as health care, the federal government has no business messing with it at all outside of a constitutional amendment. Okay? That would do the trick, but that's not what they did. The Supreme Court of the day just plucked out of thin air this right to abortion. It's not a health care issue. It's not mentioned in the Constitution. The authority is not given to them to make it. Therefore, the constitutional remedy is that it is relegated to the states or the people, respectively. I don't agree with abortion, as you can probably tell. But if the state of South Carolina made a law that said abortion was legal, that's constitutional. Because it's not touched on as being under the authority of the federal government. It is relegated to the states or to the people. If the people don't like that law, they can fire their legislators in the state capitol and change it. They can get up off their lazy butt and run. There you go. That's an idea. Now, COVID pandemic, one of my favorite recent subjects. There is no COVID pandemic, okay? The numbers don't match up. Mathematics is an exact science. 1 plus 1 is 2, not 4,738. It has never been 4,738. It will never be 4,738, okay? Now, the CDC put out guidelines for this COVID thing, okay? Whether it's real or not, I don't know. I personally think it is, but I personally don't think it's the existential threat that the feds say it is. It's a method of control, okay? But the CDC said if you get shot in the head, run over by a transfer truck, drowned in the ocean, and hit by an asteroid, and that teaspoon full of stuff that is left of you tests positive for COVID-19, it's a COVID death. Where I come from, that's called a bare-faced lie. Okay? There are a lot of people who died with COVID. There are not those 300,000 people who died of COVID. And there is a difference, okay? The hospitals are not full. They're not overflowing. That's just what we're being told. It's called propaganda, okay? The federal government says that over 300,000 Americans have died from COVID. There's death in the streets. Look out your window. Do you see dead